Hey there, good day. Welcome to Revved Up Reflections. This week I'm just going to be talking about spec class racing, road racing from different series that I've seen. I haven't paid attention to it for a few years now, but when I started racing in the 883 Twin Sports Series, the Harley Davidson series in 93. Yeah, it started in 93. But what it was, spec class racing is for each bike, you're only allowed to make certain modifications. Like, for instance, you can change the exhaust system, you can jetting or mapping of the carb, fuel injection mapping. We didn't have fuel injection then, so just map it, rejetting of the carb. You can change the ignition module or ignition system and suspension components. You could add uh, extra rotor up front to convert them over to dual discs, and you could change the suspension in the front. Had to stay at 39 stock fork tubes. You change the internals and the damping, and same with the shocks. You could use whatever shocks you wanted to on there, but you had to use stock fender up front, stock wheels, preferably cast wheels. You couldn't use laced wheels. You had to use cast wheels on there, and supposedly that was all you could do to it. But what actually happens though is first year that I raced, rule book was pretty straight up. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, you couldn't no internal engine modifications. But after 1 year, you could see that some bikes were demonstrably faster than others. I'm talking not a little bit. I'm talking a lot faster on the straightaway. So what they did for the 94 season, they came out and said that you could change before you just said use stock cylinders. 94 they came out and said, well, you could use pistons could be plus or minus 10%, 10%, plus or minus 10 thousandths over the top of the cylinder. So you could change the deck height. And they sent out a racing mod for the oil pump. You could take the oil pump and cut the feed gears down into and modify the oil pump body. Now, the reason you did that is on the stock Sportster, oil pump has a 2-to-1 feed ratio. So it feeds one and returns two. That's the ratio. By modifying the feed gear, basically cutting it in two, you turn it into a 4-to-1 pump. So you're cutting, it's going to have the same pressure, but it doesn't flow as much volume. What you've got on most Harleys is a high volume, low pressure system. You can do that, and the reason for doing that is on these things, after you ride them probably 5 laps or so, the crankcase starts filling up with oil because it can't return it back to the tank fast enough. So it actually slowed the bike down quite a bit. Filling up with oil, it starts grabbing the crank, and the crank can't spin as fast. And then it starts throwing oil up on the cylinders. So you'd notice that on some bikes, they'd start smoking after a while, after about 5 or 6 laps. And that was the reason for the pump mod. There were a lot of other classes too that they came out with. Had the Triumph Trophy Challenge, Triumph Trophy Cup. Came out with the Triumph, whatever 880, whatever size they were, and had the Yamaha Seika 2 Challenge for a while there, which was same thing, stock Yamaha 600 Seika 2, cheap bike. And later on, they had the Aprilia Cup, and I want to say they did a BMW challenge for the R, whatever it was. Anyway, they're all basically close to the same idea. Stock bike, very few mods, so they're more competitive. But what ends up happening is, you have a bike that makes, for instance, 883 makes, basically about 40 horsepower at the rear wheel in stock trim. So you change out the exhaust, air cleaner, jetting, ignition system, whatever, and you get them up into the 50s, 52, 55. I've actually seen one making 60 horsepower. That's with stock cams, supposedly stock pistons, stock everything. Couldn't touch the ports. You could do a performance valve job, but no porting whatsoever. That being said, there was cheating going on. But anyway, it was a fun class. Learned a lot in there. Not the fastest guy in the world, but had fun doing it. And went on to do Buell racing. Talked with that for a few years. Experience all in all. I did ride a Triumph Pocono. Guy broke his wrist. Wanted to keep up in the points. Wanted to know if I'd ride his bike. So I repaired it a little bit and switched leathers and wear his leathers. We were about the same size, so I went out cheating. I went out and rode. And that bike, which made more power than my Sportster did, I had higher lap times. So it was actually a slower bike with me riding it, because it was porky. Porky and supposedly had more power than mine. It probably did. But porky bike, just hard to get used to riding at any kind of speed. That's went to Daytona. Used to go to Daytona a lot, and riding 883 around Daytona is, man, it's slow. Not real technical track other than in the infield. But being up on the banking, it's whew, man. My first time there, I came out of the infield and looked at the banking, and I'm like, man, I'm not going up there, because it's got an apron down at the bottom of the bank, so it's flat down at the bottom. So I just rode around the damn apron first time, and eventually, after about 3 or 4 laps, I did get up on the banking, and it's different. I think it's 31-degree banking, and you have to maintain at least 85 miles an hour to stay up there, or you will drop down the banking. I went there in 90. I want to say it was either fall of 93 or fall of 94, maybe. One of them, but entered in an endurance race there, half-hour endurance race, maybe 1 hour. But I think they were going to have the race because it was raining. I mean, it wasn't raining just a little bit. It was Florida rain. One of those Florida afternoon rains. It was pouring. Couldn't see the damn track. And I remember going out there, and I didn't have any type of fog device in my face shield. So I went out there, and for the first 3 laps, I'm like, man, I really can't see a damn thing. And finally got it straight where I could see. And I'm going around the east banking down there, and there's a guy on I want to say a Ducati up here. I'm like right here behind him. So not even a bike length behind him. He's like up here, I'm like right here. So bike sounds good, and then I hear it kind of like it's making coughing a little bit. And no sooner than, I'm watching him right there, and his bike just goes right in front of me down the banking. Nearly takes my front end out. And what it was, he had open velocity stacks on. I knew the guy had open velocity stacks on there, It was sucking rain up through the carbs. It was raining that bad. But made it through the entire race there. Soaking wet. I mean, absolutely. The leathers are soaked. I'm soaked. And that was it. And then the next day out, I was doing on Sunday, they had the Twin Sports race. And I actually wrecked down in the chicane there, trying to pass some guys in the chicane before you get onto the west banking there. And I remember crashing. And when you crash, it happens really fast, but in your brain, it's really slow. So I remember going, I'm like, oh shit, I'm on the ground. Where's my bike? And my bike goes flying past me, and I'm rolling around, and there's oh shit, there's some hay bales. My bike goes by, knocks the hay bales out of the way. I was like, oh damn, there's a concrete wall. So I stopped about probably 5 or 6 feet before the concrete wall. You know, the whole time you're like, man, I'm going to hit that damn thing. But it didn't hit it. And I remember getting up and going, there's some bleachers over there. People are like, yeah. I get up and I was like, yeah. Yeah, and the corner worker come over and they got my bike and put it on their trailer. Drove back to the pits there. But that's really about all I got. Hope you guys have a good week coming up. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, all that stuff. And you guys have a great week. Take care.